Hello, my friends. Today I just wanted to make a short video about uh, the quote-unquote art project called Omega Mart. And this is a project created by, once again, quote-unquote, an art collective called Meow Wolf. And these videos, these fake commercial promo videos for Omega Mart have been recommended to me by YouTube. This is how I found it. And these are promotional fake commercials for a literal grocery store sized art installation in Las Vegas. And from the moment I saw these commercials, I got the impression that this was not just your average, everyday art collective or art project that was put together by an independent collective of artists. This immediately, from the moment I saw it, smacked of a CIA op, a CIA project. And, you know, that was just my initial impression as soon as I saw this. I was like, this is something that intelligence would put out. And there are a number of reasons for that I will get into, but let me just show you one of the examples. And then I'll talk about the connections that this project indeed does have to the CIA. And then I'll talk about why I think a group like the CIA would put out so-called art of this vein, of this genre, of this type, what their point is, what their goal in creating this type of experience for the audience that they're targeting, which I think is an audience of, you know, pseudo-intellectual, college age, pot smoking, psychedelic consuming kids. So let's watch it. Let's watch one example.
It's laundry day at Omega Mart. Save on name brands like Omega Point, now just $6.99. Plausible deniability, only $5.87. And done. No time for it? You're done. Just 2 for $10 or 3 for $7 when you spend $20 or more with a valid coupon. Limited to 1 coupon per customer. Price is good through December 12th. See in store for details. That's Omega Savings. That's Omega Mart.
Omega Mart. You have no idea what's in store for you.
You have no idea what's in store for you. Vaguely threatening. I'll just let some more of these play in the background while I talk. Obviously, you know, on first glance, the budget of these promo commercials is incredible. And if you look at the actual art installation in Las Vegas, it is, like I said, a whole grocery store sized installation. And the budget is really high. This is not just high budget, but they have high skill in doing these kinds of edits. And so just from the moment I saw this, I thought, you know, this is something that a lot of money, a lot of effort is behind. And because of the surrealistic, the psychedelic nature of it, I immediately suspected the CIA to be behind something like this, because we all know, or at least if you've done any kind of research into things like LSD and the whole hippie culture, the psychedelic culture that came out of the 1960s, there's a lot of work that's been done that shows the CIA was involved in promoting those kinds of things. The CIA did a lot of experiments with LSD, and so I just had a hunch you know, that something like this would be funded or created by the CIA. And it turns out my hunch was basically correct. The first thing I found, first of all, Meow Wolf, the so-called art collective behind Omega Mart. It says here that it got $528,000 from the state of New Mexico, but that's not all they got. That's just one portion of the money that they received from the state. And you could see here, they received, they've already, on top of the $528,000 that they got from the state, they've received a $910,000 grant from New Mexico's Job Training Incentive Program, and a $1.1 million grant in state and city grants to purchase the warehouse in which their previous art installation, the House of Eternal Return, was located. These people are funded in large part by the state. And that's the first red flag. Why is the state involved in promoting and funding this wacky, surrealistic, vaguely anti-capitalist, anti-consumerist art project? That should make you go, The next thing I found was, it turns out George R.R. Martin also pledged $2.7 million to Meow Wolf, the art collective. And as I've said in a previous video about George R.R. Martin, I've suspected him for a while of being connected with the CIA. But stay with me. This isn't it. This isn't all that I got. There's a much more direct connection coming up. The next thing I found was, let's look at the leadership of Meow Wolf. The creative officer, the chief creative officer, is this Jewess named Allie Rubenstein. And Rubenstein was a creative and pioneer in the immersive industry. She spent over 22 years as a Disney Imagineer. She left her position as executive producer for Disney's Asia region to bring her expertise to immersive experience to Meow Wolf as the company's chief creative officer in May of 2019. So she was at a high level. She was a production designer and executive of immersive experiences in the Asian branch of Disney in Tokyo and Hong Kong Disneyland. And she is now the chief creative officer of Meow Wolf, who is behind this so-called art exhibit, which they dare to call an underground art collective. I've seen it described that way in certain news articles about it. And we all know, if you don't know, this is more background information. Disney is heavily tied to the CIA. It's been tied to the CIA for decades. And anyone who's done research into these kinds of things, in the way that the CIA has manipulated culture in general in the United States and all over the world, you would know that the CIA and Disney are in bed together and have been for a long time. So that's a pretty solid connection. But can we get even more solid than that? Yes, we can. We can get even more solid than that. Turns out, Jim Ward is another executive at Meow Wolf. And Jim Ward is a venture partner at Alsop Louis Partners. And Alsop Louis is its own venture capital company. It says here, leaving Lucasfilm in 2008, Jim Ward became involved in venture capital with Alsop Louis Partners. He says, "Along the way, I had a lot of fun. Blah blah blah. Where is it?" At this point, Ward encountered Meow Wolf. Stuart Alsop of Alsop Louis has a home in Santa Fe. He had invested in this crazy small company called Meow Wolf. And if you know anything about Alsop Louis, the Louis of Alsop Louis is a man named Gilman Louis. And Gilman Louis is a technology venture capitalist who got his start as a video game designer and then he was the leader, the chief of the CIA Venture Capital Fund In-Q-Tel, the famous venture capital arm of the CIA In-Q-Tel. So we have a company, Gilman Louis, Alsop Louis, who was probably the biggest and earliest investor in Meow Wolf. And one of the owners of Alsop Louis is straight up a CIA agent. I mean, he ran In-Q-Tel. And now we still have one of the executives of Meow Wolf is a partner at Alsop Louis. So this isn't just 2 or 3 steps away from CIA involvement. This is direct leadership is CIA connected. Direct leadership of Meow Wolf is CIA connected. So this, I think, is pretty conclusive, in my opinion. I mean, you could show this to a normie and they'd still probably be skeptical, but, to me, a guy like this, a suit like this, running a wacky, creative, underground art experience like Meow Wolf, there's way more going on here. I mean, this guy being a partner at a CIA venture capitalist company, I mean, come on. There's something more going on here. So the question becomes, what are they trying to accomplish? What is the meaning of this propaganda art installation? Some of my initial thoughts were, maybe it's just the vaguely anti-capitalist kind of thing, the anti-consumerist angle of it, vaguely promoting leftism or socialism through that kind of a narrative. And we all know, the powers that be want to promote socialism, communism, leftism in general, because it justifies the continued expansion of their government power and the continual erosion of traditional values and traditional society. And it's obviously globalist in nature, anti-national in nature. So there's that. But on an even deeper level, I started looking into what the leaders, what some of these executives of Meow Wolf say about their own project and what their goals are. And I found an interview from a podcast called the Future of Storytelling Podcast. And in episode 32, one of the leaders of Meow Wolf was interviewed. And let me just find... His name is Vince Kadlubeck, co-founder and director of Meow Wolf. And one of the things that he says in this podcast is, quote, "There is a moment at the House of Eternal Return," that's one of their earlier projects, House of Eternal Return. "There's a moment that I use as an example. for what he's trying to accomplish. There's a refrigerator that is in a kitchen, and it looks like a normal kitchen, and it looks like a normal refrigerator. But when you open the refrigerator, you can walk through it. And it's one of the portals into another dimension, because they're inside a normal house. They look at a normal refrigerator, and they open the refrigerator, and they realize it's something completely different than what it should be. I think in that moment, people also realize that the world can be different than what it's supposed to be, and that they can be different from what they are supposed to be. It's a very psychedelic trope. It's like going down the rabbit hole. If you can provide people with a context that is familiar, and then break that context with possibility, they then start to realize that they have possibility within themselves as a person out in the world. So, what is the meaning of this? I had a discussion in my Discord about this with a couple of good guys named Who and Mac. And what they sort of brought to my attention was the idea that this is a classic example of an initiatory or inductive type of an experience. It basically, it brings the audience into a state of mind that is detached from their common sense. It brings them down a path where, like he's saying, it's a psychedelic experience of going down the rabbit hole where you break from the norm. You break from what is familiar, and you start to think anything is possible. And it puts you into a very suggestible state of mind. And so I think the main purpose of something like this is not any one particular propaganda message. It's almost like a meta propaganda program that makes other propaganda sink in deeper. It makes people more suggestible to other propaganda, and it's the type of thing that breaks people away from their reason, from their ability to maintain a common sense mentality. And here's another quote from the interview that really, I think, solidifies that idea. It says, quote, "I think it ties to this child mind, right? It ties to this. You referenced this before. To this way, as children, we look at the world because we are, as you say, open to all possibilities. Everything's new. Everything is something that we're learning. We come at everything with a kind of openness and awe, and we learn over time to shut that down. We learn not to question things, to take things as they are, to fall in line." And so they always present this kind of thing as being a critical thinker, thinking for yourself, don't just conform, when in reality, this idea that you question everything, you throw out all conventions, you throw out all common sense, and you question everything, that's the type of thing that gets people to 100% accept brainwashing and to reject their innate, instinctive, common sense understanding of the world. It's the type of thing that gets people to believe that things like race don't matter, because that's just something that you that you can change with your decisions. That's something here that's let's see if I could find it. Here. He says more. "You have an analytical mind that analyzes what has happened and then uses the data from the past, what has happened, to determine the present. And that's an analytical mind. It's an important mind. It helped us to survive. Blah, blah, blah. But the more interesting capacity for humans is that we could shift that, and we could actually determine who we are. not based on things that have happened to us in the past, but by choices that we make moving forward into the future. So, quote, I am not who I have been, I am who I am becoming, is like the shift. And so much of our identity is that. You know, the default identity is created through past-based experiences. And there's the imagination and the creative process. The creation process shifts you from I am what I have been into I am what I am becoming, and puts the power into every choice. So now every choice moving forward is the determining factor for who I am, rather than these things that have happened in the past that I have no control over anymore. That to me is the creative process, the creator process, the creation process, where people are opened up to their own power of choice. And that happens through imagination. So this is the type of thing that anything is possible. We aren't constricted or confined by these limitations of nature. We can decide who we are going into the future, and change our identity every day. We could change who we are day to day, week to week, year to year. So there's the element of things like race don't matter, things like gender don't matter, things like age doesn't matter. All these different things that used to, in a traditional society, determine our identities, they don't matter anymore. All that matters is the choices that you make as an individual. You can be whatever you want to be. Everyone is this special, perfect individual, and your identity can shift and change, and it's in flux all the time, depending on your feelings, depending on your imagination. That's the type of thing that this is trying to induce in the viewer. And so it's not just, breaking down individual identity, breaking down traditional conceptions of identity. It's also, it gives people who are disaffected, people who are unhappy, this belief that, moving forward, I can be whatever I want to be. And it kind of is an opiate in that sense, a pacifying experience in that sense. So there's a few different elements to this, but I think the most important thing is this induction of the child mind, the creation, the destruction of previous traditional conventional understandings of identity, and the replacing of this identity economy. They're calling this a part of the experience economy, but it's putting people into that suggestible mode, that suggestible state of mind where anything is possible. Don't be so don't be so strict about what is or isn't real. Anything could be real and nothing is real, and you could be whoever you want to be, and anyone can be whoever they want to be, and don't judge, and don't be throw out common sense. I think that's really the point of it. And this isn't something new. This is the last thing I'll say, is this really isn't something new. Apparently, it was linked to me in connection with this conversation. Somebody on Twitter posted this in relation to these weird Biden pictures. I don't know the source of these, but is this real? I don't know. This is bizarre. Is this a real photo in GQ? It's really weird. But he says, Zero HP Lovecraft on Twitter says, in the book That Hideous Strength by C.S. Lewis, there is described a room full of paintings, which at first appear innocuous, but upon inspection turn out to contain subtle perversions of normalcy and decency. That room was used to acquaint initiates with the occult. And a buddy in Discord posted the relevant segment of this book. Some of them, the portraits, belonged to a school of art with which he was already familiar. There was a portrait of a young woman who held her mouth wide open to reveal the fact that inside of it was thickly overgrown with hair. It was very skillfully painted in the photographic manner so that you could almost feel that hair. Indeed, you could not avoid feeling it, however hard you tried. There was a giant mantis playing a fiddle while being eaten by another mantis, and a man with corkscrews instead of arms bathing in a flat, sadly colored sea beneath a summer sunset. But most of the pictures were not of this kind. At first sight, most of them seemed rather ordinary, though Mark was a little surprised at the predominance of scriptural themes. It was only at the second or third glance that one discovered certain unaccountable details, something odd about the positions of the figures' feet, or the arrangement of their fingers, or the grouping. And who was the person standing between Christ and Lazarus? And why were there so many beetles under the table in the Last Supper? What was the curious trick of lighting that made each picture look like something seen in delirium? When once these questions had been raised, the apparent ordinariness of the pictures became their supreme menace, like the ominous surface innocence at the beginning. Like the ominous surface innocence at the beginning of certain dreams. Every fold of drapery, every piece of architecture had a meaning one could not grasp, but which withered the mind. Compared with these other surrealistic pictures, compared with these, the other surrealistic pictures were mere foolery. Long ago, Mark had read somewhere of things of that extreme evil which seems innocent to the uninitiate, and had wondered what sort of things they might be. Now, he felt he knew. And I think this can just as easily describe the seemingly innocuous, the seemingly normal experience of, oh, it's a grocery store. It's a wacky grocery store. And then you get in and you start to realize that there's these sorts of perversions, these sorts of obscenities, these surreal alterations that break you from your normal, traditional, instinctive understanding of reality and bring you into this childlike, suggestible mindset. And that, I think, is why the CIA is promoting this and behind the creation of it. It's helpful for them to control and manage a population and to break people from their traditional identities and bring them into this world globalist new man existence, transhuman existence. Anyway, I could go on and on. I hope I haven't rambled too much, and I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think. Thank you for watching.